one of the things I keep thinking about, and I've seen some other people ask about it, is this court case is being televised. And it's clear that the judge is at least neutral, if not, I don't know. He seems he's at least neutral, right? He's not biased. He's not clearly got a left-wing bias. How many times across the nation, over and over and over again, are prosecutors doing these things that are unconstitutional and getting away with it? And even just having the judge basically on their side as a way to put people away that they think are political, on the other side of the political spectrum. I'm sure from what I've heard from Julie Kelly and other people covering the January 6th stuff, that if this judge here, the Rittenhouse judge, was there in D.C. or wherever they're trying these January 6th stuff, that it would be going a lot differently.
Oh, yeah.
It brings up, the idea of like maybe every single court case should be televised so that we can see every single thing that's going on so that these people can be watched. It's kind of scary to me to think that that guy, an experienced prosecutor who clearly knows about the Constitution, I've read from other lawyers that this is a subject that comes up a couple of times in law school, plus it's on the bar exam. You can't bring up the fact or use it against him that the guy didn't speak after his arrest, and yet there he did, just as the judge said, brazenly violating this guy's constitutional rights in the letter and in the spirit of the whole thing. How often is this happening all across the country?
This is a prosecutor who knows he has the mob, the rioters, and the press on his side. And even after all of these grave constitutional violations, that's what the judge said, the media doesn't cover it. The media just says like Kyle Rittenhouse. They frame everything to the worst degree for Kyle.
Kyle cries on the stand because he probably killed the guys. Is the headline.
Well, the Daily Beast said Kyle Rittenhouse makes wild accusations about those claiming they were threatening him. And I'm like, wild accusations? There's multiple witnesses saying that Rosenbaum said, if I get you alone, I'll effing kill you. That was you get the state's own witness saying he drew his gun on Kyle Rittenhouse. And the Daily Beast lie. False frame. I'll say they falsely framed.
Look, I wasn't there. Obviously, I wasn't there. But that was one night that I watched as many streams as I possibly could. I watched BG. I watched Richie. I watched one guy even aggregate like 3 or 4 streams into one. So like I was there when that guy became the N-word guy. Remember? Like not there, but like I was watching at the gas station.
Oh, yeah, Rosenbaum.
Yeah, when Rosenbaum we were just calling him the N-word guy because we didn't know who he was because he was running around screaming the N-word. He was obviously agitating. He was looking for conflict. I'm going to get you. I'm going to do this, blah, 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 blah. And like the people in the press and popular interpretation just did not experience that the way that the guys on the ground obviously did, that Rittenhouse obviously did, and then those of us who were watching it intently actually experienced it that night.
Yeah, framing is everything because you could take certain facts and you could omit some of them, you could highlight some of them, and there's different stories being told, but the fact that this case is being live streamed, I think is absolutely amazing. I think we should live stream all of criminal court cases just so we could actually get an unbiased point of view to what's actually happening here. But it was kind of wild seeing the state prosecutor literally argue more with the judge, interrupt the judge more than he did the defense. I was like, what's going on here? There was a number of times the judge snapped on the state prosecutor who looked like he was a deer in headlights for many of the proceedings. So again, the mainstream media attacking Kyle is nothing new. They've been attacking him from the very beginning. We didn't even know a lot of the details here. The mainstream media came out with a lot of spin on this story and highlighted specific events that fit their narrative. Now there's another narrative. There's talk about some of these people who were shot, their criminal past, their criminal history. People are just selecting and picking whatever fits their narrative. But truly, seeing this live, raw, unedited, I think is extremely important, and I think we should normalize this as much as we can.
Yeah, I mean, aside from being on the ground, I watched it live from multiple streams. I've interviewed Richie and BG on the scene. I was just listening to the podcast that we did with them back in the summertime. It's one of these things where like I have such almost firsthand experience in I wasn't there, but like to see the discrepancy between what happened that night, talking to eyewitnesses, watching the trial, and then seeing what's happening in the headlines. Like where did they even get the white supremacists and this and that? I mean, they didn't even kill anybody who was black.
Yeah, they're all tweeting that Kyle Rittenhouse killed 3 black people.
What?
Right.
Like, okay, hold on.
Not everyone, but there's some elements on Twitter and social media.
People on Twitter are
that.
pushing this.
And they're not getting fact checked at all.
There was a New York lawyer account with like 250,000 followers who tweeted, "I have not been following this in minute detail, but I think the fact remains: Kyle Rittenhouse crossed state lines with an assault rifle to go to a protest." And I'm like, the prosecutor has charges against Dominic Black for supplying a weapon in Wisconsin to Kyle Rittenhouse. That's a substantial portion of the criminal proceedings out of Kenosha. These people don't even understand what the prosecutor is going for in this. Right. They just made something up. They all tweet about it. They don't fact check. They don't watch the trial, and then they claim they did. I've been sitting here every morning with it on live stream on TV, and then just like reading all the legal analysis from like Recato Law and from Andrew Branca and a plethora of other legal analyses, watching all these live streams. And I'm not going to pretend to be a lawyer and know, right? All of the nitty-gritty details in the law. The defense is citing various laws that were violated by the prosecutor. I can just tell you the judge screamed at the prosecutor for a grave constitutional violation. Yeah. He said, he was like, you're on the borderline. You may be over it. I was actually pissed.
He cut himself off too. He's like, and then I'll just leave it at that for right now.
You want to know why I was pissed? I was listening to Recado's stream, and it was fantastic. Recato had 70,000 viewers on his stream. It's really, really
almost
great
like
stuff.
Timcast.
Oh yeah, close.
I mean, but that's way bigger than we've been in this past year. I mean, and so their commentary is fantastic. And I don't know who it was, but they made the comment that the judge he wants to prove that these trials can happen, that the process can work. And as soon as I heard that, I realized if the judge does not declare a mistrial with prejudice, he proves that prosecution can violate your constitutional rights, prejudice the jury by admitting evidence that was deemed inadmissible, and the judge will allow it to happen.
But if he has this dueling incentive of wanting the jury to rule on the facts and perhaps come back with a not guilty verdict, at the same time as wanting to protect his constitutional rights and the process and such, and maybe then go to this direct verdict, that's a tough one for the judge to actually manage, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. It is. But I think some people have speculated that the judge will wait for the jury to issue their finding and then intervene.
Can you imagine?
It happens.
But I mean, can you imagine if they come back and say guilty on all charges, and the judge is like, nah.
Yep.
The reaction is going to be absolutely
that would probably
insane.
be worst case scenario.
And then,
right?
I mean, the Chicago Police Department already put out a notice saying for officers that their leave is not going to be approved because they want all officers on the force because they're expecting civil unrest to happen in major cities. So already there's a lot of threats. There's a lot of hyperbolic language on social media that's not getting fact checked, that's not getting corrected, that's being escalated, that's being promoted. So this is building up to another recipe of disaster, especially with the mainstream media putting fuel on the fire in this entire situation, blatantly lying about it.
There's
I
enough.
just want to address that real quick.
Do it. Go for it.
Because you mentioned the rock in the hard place with the judge. I thought about that. I'm like, if he intervenes, people will claim there is no fair trial. But if we watch prosecutorial misconduct, malicious prosecution, what was the guy's name? De Bruin, I think his name was. Do you see this? The witness who testified that ADA Krause and Binger brought him in and told him to change his police statement. Right. Malicious prosecution. That was on Zeminski. I think his name is Zeminski.
Yeah,
is that
Zeminski,
his name?
Joshua.
Not on Rittenhouse, but these guys are clearly corrupt. If the judge says, I'm going to allow this corruption to play through, then unfortunately the system is broken.
Maybe this isn't the A team either. I mean, if you grow up and your biggest goal in life is to become the prosecutor in Kenosha, Wisconsin, does that mean that you're the A team prosecutor? No offense to Kenosha or small towns around the country or anything, but maybe this is just standard, incompetence that we see. And I mean, I have no idea. I haven't sat in on too many murder trials. In fact, the one that stands out to me is OJ. This is all reminding me a little bit of the OJ trial. I was in college. You guys are probably too young for this, but I remember the whole country was watching, man. And in fact, I remember I was in class at university. It just stopped the day of the verdict. And it was such a big deal. We were all watching it. I don't think that this has that same level of national prominence, but
just
it is
among politicos.
Oh yeah, definitely.
People like us. Let me bring up this mainstream media stuff because someone actually just chatted this, and I had the New York Times pulled up. I want to go through what the media's been saying, but this CNN article is one of the most egregious violations of the truth. CNN writes, Kyle Rittenhouse testifies he knew Joseph Rosenbaum was unarmed when he fatally shot him. That is completely immaterial. It was a small second of this massive trial, and this is what the media does. They pull snippets. This is also an interesting point, though. Many people thought it was crazy they put Kyle Rittenhouse on the stand. There were a few points he made that could not have been admitted as evidence unless he testified, and that's why people think maybe that's why they put him on the stand. One was that Rosenbaum had threatened his life on 2 occasions, and that he knew that the Zeminski guy was armed, and he testified he heard the gunshot as he was running and turned. What the prosecutor is trying to do is falsely frame as much as possible. Now, I noticed a lot of people asking why the defense wasn't objecting to the insane questions of the prosecutor. Some have suggested the prosecutor's line of questioning were so absurd, it's prejudicing the jury against him. He kept asking the same question over. He asked the same question like 5 times. And every time Kyle would answer him, he'd say, I'll ask you again. When you were going, he was doing things like, you wanted to kill those people. And Kyle goes, I didn't want to kill anybody. And he goes, I'll ask you again. You went out there because you wanted to kill those people, right? And he goes, I didn't want to kill anybody. He asked the question again. What the heck? Over and over again.
Yeah, he was bringing up video games. He was trying to insinuate that video games are akin to killing people.
Right. No, he said, don't you play Call of Duty with your friend Dominic Black? And he's like, I mean, maybe sometimes. And he goes, and isn't the point of that game to take these rifles and kill people? And then he was like, video games aren't real life.
And then he started talking about AR-15s being prominent in the video game, and Kyle was like, well, there's a lot of other firearms. There's pistols and shotguns in there as well. But he was like, but AR-15s are the most prominent ones. They're like, no.
Shovels.
And a lot of people were saying that it was almost as if the term and concept of an AR-15 was on trial, since how much it was brought up, how much it was talked about.
Let me show you how CNN frames this. This is not an opinion piece. This is CNN's factual news. They say, Kyle Rittenhouse testified Wednesday that he acted in self-defense when he fatally shot a man who had thrown a plastic bag at him and chased him last year in Kenosha, Wisconsin, in what is likely to be the pivotal testimony of his homicide trial. Quote, I didn't do anything wrong. I defended myself, he testified. But in cross-examination, Rittenhouse said that he knew the man, Joseph Rosenbaum, was unarmed when he ran at the teenager. Rittenhouse said he pointed his rifle at Rosenbaum in an attempt to deter him, adding that he knew pointing a rifle at someone is dangerous. False. That was leading questions from the prosecution. The prosecution said, did you point your weapon at Rosenbaum? Well, yeah, of course he did. And you did that because you wanted him to know you would kill him and you meant business. And then Kyle, of course, says, I didn't want to kill him. I didn't want to do it. He keeps getting asked. What CNN is doing is they're taking statements from the prosecution that Kyle either passively agreed with or said, I guess, and they're acting like he himself said it. Quote, he was chasing me. I was alone. He threatened to kill me earlier that night. I didn't want to have to shoot him. I pointed it at him because he kept running at me and I didn't want him to chase me. You see, they select all of the worst possible quotes from Rittenhouse. He said that he feared Rosenbaum, who did not touch his body at all that night, would take his gun and kill people, omitting the fact that I believe it was the medical forensics medical examiner who said Rosenbaum's hand was on the gun, and Kyle Rittenhouse who said he grabbed my gun. The prosecution then said, but he didn't touch your body. And Kyle was like, right. And now CNN takes that to falsely frame exactly what happened. Let me pull up this New York Times real quick. They say, key moments from Kyle Rittenhouse's testimony. One of the things they say, Thomas Binger, the lead prosecutor, pressed Mr. Rittenhouse about why he aimed a rifle at Joseph Rosenbaum, who had run toward him but was unarmed. You wanted him to get the message from you that if you come any closer, I'm going to kill you. That's why you pointed the gun at him. Mr. Rittenhouse said he did not want to kill Mr. Rosenbaum, though he believed Rosenbaum was trying to disarm him. Quote, if I would have let Mr. Rosenbaum take my firearm from me, he would have used it and killed me with it and probably killed more people. So respect to the New York Times for putting that quote in right at the top. Yeah, that was important. But testimony.
New York Times, Julie Bosman states, Grosskreutz, a paramedic from West Allis, Milwaukee suburb, was shot in the arm by Rittenhouse. She says that he was holding a handgun pointed in the air when Rittenhouse shot him from a short distance away.
Why?
So that was at, she tweeted that at, I copied it at 5:15 p.m. Then I tweeted at her, you should probably delete this. And at 5:15 p.m. she deleted it.
Well, good.
Right.
Look.
But she tried to put it out there until she was fact checked on it. She wasn't actually doing her job. She was making things up until the tweet started to go viral and people were like, why are you lying?